Are you starting to see signs of that? What have you seen from those guys?
Well, they're still learning the scheme from that standpoint. The thing I'm encouraged about that they came back in shape and they're running around and moving well. As we see more routes, and Tom gives us a challenge because if he doesn't throw it to his guys, it's hard for him to throw it to us because he throws great incompletions. I know that's hard to do, but he's very precise and specific in what he does. But more importantly, our guys are focusing on our scheme and trying to get ready for the season without missing all the small fundamental steps. So that's what we're kind of preparing for.
And a number of your DBs, I asked them, how specifically he had helped them. I mean, I heard everything from, Mike talking about how he likes to look off safeties and how that's really pushing him. Sean talked about how Brady's helped him with leverages and how to disguise his coverages. What do you think the biggest impact is going to be on going against him daily on these young guys as they're still growing and developing?
Again, just being where they're supposed to be and working on the fundamentals. I think he challenges you to do everything right and everything precise. So we try to do that anyway, but having him as a quarterback makes them even more tuned in and locked in every day of doing the little things they have to do to get better.
Okay, next is going to be Greg Allman.
Hey, Todd, we've been asking a lot of people about Parnell Motley, making a lot of plays in practice, showing up as an undrafted rookie. I just want to see what you like about him and what more he has to do to solidify making this roster as one of your backup corners.
Well, he's flashed a lot of ball skills. When the balls come his way, he's come down with some interceptions. Obviously, he has a lot to learn from a schematic standpoint, so it has a lot more to do with that, and he's got to be able to play special teams. But he's making strides, and he's showing us that he's here, and we notice him every day. We just got to see how it goes as it goes along. But so far, we like what he's doing.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, next is going to be Rick Stroud.
Hey, Todd, with Vita Vea, how much better can he get as a pass rusher, and just what does he have to do to become that?
I think he just has to use his hands more. He's big and powerful, but he's also fast and athletic as well. He's just got to get his hand placement down and use his hands more and not settle for the first time when he puts his hands on him and then try to bull him after that. He's just got to swipe and rip and do all those things that Coach Rogers is asking him to do. He does that more, he'll be a little more effective.
And we saw Devin White last year, was sick to begin, and then he had the knee thing. The last 2 months, he was Defensive Rookie of the Month. But where do you see his biggest growth? Is it familiarity with the defense, leadership? Where do you see him taking that next step?
I think it's the maturity in the defense as well as leadership. I think he's a natural leader. Guys gravitate to him. He's the first one up that brings everybody into the huddle. And his command of the defense this year coming back in has had a lot of recall in doing that, and I think that'll make him play faster.
Okay, next up is going to be Ira Kaufman.
Todd, when you were playing safety back in the day, you knew how challenging it is to play defensive back. And now, all these years later, Todd, it's got nothing but tougher. Talk about how difficult it is to be a defensive back in the NFL in today's game.
I mean, I don't think it's that difficult. It's still the same thing back when I played. You have to understand where your help is. You have to be able to tackle. You have to be able to read routes, and you got to make plays when they arise. So, that hasn't changed. Just understanding the scheme and what you have to do every play is a full-time job. So making sure when you have a bunch of young guys, when there's really not an older guy in the secondary to lead them, you got to make sure they dot their I's and cross their T's so they're ready to play come Sunday.
But Todd, the rules have changed, Todd, and that makes it a little more difficult.
It does, but within the rules, football is football. You can't chuck after 5 yards. We get that. It still comes down to covering, blocking, and tackling.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Ed Encina.
Hi, Todd. Given the success that Shaq Barrett had last year, and maybe the attention that he's going to get for a full season, what can he do for an encore, and how important he is to everything you guys do?
Well, he came in great shape, number one. So far, he's having a very good camp. I don't know what he can do for an encore, but he has to be himself, and we're going to give him some chances to rush the passer along with JPP and a lot of other guys up there. So just him drawing attention would help us, but we got to move him around some. We understand that. We know they're going to be keying on him a lot, as well as some of our other guys, and we just got to put him in position to make more plays, and I think he'll be able to do that.
Okay, next is going to be Luke Easterling.
Coach, you ask a lot of your safeties, and you have a room full of guys that appear to be up to the challenge of playing, in the box, playing in the slot, playing single high. What between the skill sets that those guys have and what your scheme asks them to do, what are some of the unique challenges that you can present opposing offenses because those guys are so interchangeable and can do so many different things?
Well, you just try not to give them a pre-snap read is the biggest thing. If they can play strong and free, then they can't just say they're in this or they're in that all the time. That's really the biggest thing. We try to let them play to their strengths as we go through everything. They'll do a lot of things in practice, but come game time, you kind of know who can do what, and you try to put them in position to do just that.
And you have, at least 6 guys on that back end between the corners and the safeties that are 24 years old or younger, but a lot of them already have a good bit of starting experience. How important is that going into this season that you guys are still in the same scheme? You're able to build on the success you had towards the end of the season last year, but those guys are still so young and still getting better.
I mean, it's important to have them all back from a chemistry standpoint, but you have to recreate that chemistry. Obviously, the times we're in right now and they're missing the whole off season doesn't help much, but having them back and the communication's got to continue all the way up until week 1 is important, and they got to stay healthy as well.
All right, next is going to be Tom Krasnicki.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for doing this. My question's about Devin White, and he's got a goal of having 5 sacks and 5 interceptions this season. In his second year, now that he's healthier, the knee brace is off, do you see his role expanding where maybe he'll get more blitzing opportunities in this defense?
I mean, game plan wise, it'll be yet to be determined, but he will get to run some. He'll get to do everything. He'll get to cover. He'll get to blitz. He'll get to play the run. He'll get to do everything that an inside linebacker does because he's a 3-down backer. So, and, as long as he's in the right place and he understands what to do, which he does, and he's coming to camp with that mentality, the sky's the limit for him. He's only going into his second year. The more he can grasp the defense, the better he'll be.
Okay. And next is Steve Isbitz.
Coach, you were around Tyrann Mathieu and Jamal Adams as rookies. Where does Antoine Winfield in such limited time, where does he kind of stack up in his talent and potential from what you see?
Well, he's a rookie. Those guys had spring training. Obviously, all good players, all instinctive players. I think Winfield's his own player in his own right. Very heady, very studious, comes prepared all the time. He takes coaching, which is the biggest thing you can ask for a rookie. And he applies it, not just from the classroom. You can talk to him, passing by him in the hallway and say something, and he'll retain it, and that's very encouraging, and he puts it to use once he gets on the field. So I really like that about him.
And does this Buccaneers offense look better to you than last year's edition?
We haven't played any games yet. I mean, you guys have it on paper. We understand it on paper, but defensively, we're worried about getting ready for the season. I love having Tom here, but I can't focus on that. If we don't stop anybody, we won't win any games.
All right, our next question is going to come from John Ledyard.
Todd, just wondering about the nickel corner position. Something happens to Sean. Is Antoine Winfield maybe the guy that steps in as the backup nickel corner? And if so, how do you feel about him in that role?
Well, we got a lot of guys taking reps there. That's yet to be determined right now after a week and a half. I can't really tell you who the backup nickel is yet because there's about 4 guys vying for that spot. Winfield can do a lot of things, as can Edwards, as can Mozzie, as can Ryan Smith. So we're going to keep working them, and that'll sort itself out in another week or so.
And also a question for you about Nacho. What have you seen from him and his improvements so far coming into this year?
Right now in a week and a half, he's been the most improved player. I think he's changed his upper body. He looks more stout. He looks quicker. He's more explosive. He looks more powerful right now, and he's adapted to the scheme and understanding things well. and he's taking advantage of the situation. He's always the first one out stretching. He's always the loudest one in practice on the field. He gets the other guys going. He's been a joy to be around. So, he's been great. I can't say enough good things about him.
All right. Next is Greg Allman.
Hey, Todd, you guys had liked your young depth at outside linebacker enough that you didn't draft anyone, you didn't really sign anyone in free agency. I just want to ask you how much they've met up to the high standards you had for them, and who in particular has impressed you beyond the top three of Shaq and JPP and Anthony Nelson?
Physically, they're all still learning. This is their first year really in the scheme. Physically, they're very good athletes. Mentally, they have some things to learn. So until we start scrimmaging and having those things, I can't say one or the other has impressed me one way or the other. Bells has a lot of speed. Kaz has been very strong. Cam Gill has some speed and power. Divinity is extremely smart. So we got to let them sort themselves out as we go forward.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for a couple more. We're going to go to Ed Encina.
Kind of going along with that, what have you seen from Anthony Nelson so far at this camp, and how important it is for him to step up, given there's going to be a lot more reps there with Carl Nassib gone.
Well, he had some good snaps last year when he got back. This camp, he's been very studious. He's been very tough at the point of attack. I like the things I'm seeing from him. We got to continue to get better all the way around from a schematic standpoint, but he's a smart player. He's a very heady player. He doesn't get fooled more than one time, and he plays strong. So I just look to keeping him healthy.
Okay, we have time for two more. We're going to go with Rick Stroud, followed by Jenna Lane.
Todd, you obviously competed against Tom, for years with the Jets. Now that he's in your building, I know you knew about his competitive nature and all that. What's it like, watching a guy day to day as a coach versus a competitor?
Well, again, I'm on defense. I don't get a chance to watch him much. And the biggest compliment I can give him is that he throws great incompletions, meaning that if his guy does not get the ball, he puts it in a place
Where you can't.
Where you really can. He's really like a pitcher. He can paint the outside part of the plate. He can throw it down and away. He can throw it high and tight, and that's important. It's very understated, but it's very important as a quarterback. So that's probably the biggest compliment I can give him. It's easy to complete them, but to throw a great incompletion is very hard to do, and I think he does that well.
Thanks.
All right, we'll close out with a question from Jenna Lane.
Coach, you mentioned Mozzie Wilkins a couple minutes ago. What have you seen out of him, not just in this recent camp, but in the whole year that you guys have had to work with him?
Mozzie's a hard worker. He's going to be the hardest worker out there, at least one of the hardest workers out there. And we're trying to learn him in a bunch of different positions as far as nickel and corner right now. We know he can play gunner and do a lot of things on special teams, but there's a lot of competition back there in corner for the back end part of that roster, and he's right in the mix of that.
Thanks.
All right, that's all for today. Thanks for taking the time, Coach.
Thanks, guys.